To revisit my point from part 3, this doesn't really have dark humor in it. This has two things. It has definite horror, and it has, in many ways, a war allegory to it. And both of these are fine. Indeed, one must consider whether or not there's actually a benefit to kids seeing war in this ugliness, to see the horrificness of it here rather than giving it a cartoonish spin. The things that we have seen taking place are monstrous. What Mars Attack provides is an intersection of several different areas especially relevant at this time. One being the threat of global war, especially atomic war. Note the frequent use of the word atomic throughout. This was a time, in fact, when a feeling that nationwide fallout shelters were necessary for a responsible government to have for its people, because the possibility of an atomic war taking place seemed so likely, and that everyone should be protected by the government. Yet what we often see in this series is that the people were left to fend for themselves. But what we also noted was that it wasn't because there was a lack of caring, rather, it was beyond their control, which was frequently what was felt about the situation. The fact of the matter was, the government could try all it wants to protect everyone, had taken many steps to protect everyone, but it wasn't going to be able to protect everyone. This was also, of course, the dawn of the space age, the time when we were racing with the Russians to try to get to the moon first. The idea of having an invasion that takes place in the other direction was, of course, interesting. And what, of course, helps really sell Mars Attacks is the iconic images of it. The idea of a weapon that leaves you skeletized, in some cases even while you're still alive. It hasn't finished the job yet. And the amazing concept for the aliens with their fusion of an oversized brain and a skull with those bare, bulbous eyes. It truly sold the idea that these were things which were evil. Despite the fact that, yes, there had been some victories by humanity, there was by no means a sign that the human race had retaken its world. Rather, it seemed like, okay, we were finally starting to hold our own. Yet in this part, it acts as a presumption that we've already effectively done it, and now we're taking it back to Johnny Martian here. One can't help but get the idea of World War II with this, of the fact that they came to us and now we're going back to them. We didn't start this, by God, we're going to finish it. Military units from all over the world reported to their nearest rocket bases, which had been quickly set up by the newly formed Space Committee. Governments from every country on Earth worked hand in hand to fight the menace from Mars. Tanks, guns, rocket planes, and soldiers were loaded into spaceships, ready to continue the vicious war with the Martians on Mars. Men from the ages of 16 to 45 were given quick physical examinations and enlisted into the Earth Army. Volunteers flooded into the recruiting centers as brave citizens showed they were eager to fight the worst peril that had ever threatened civilization. The Earth spaceships were close to Mars. Hypnotized by the beauty of the planet, the soldiers were snapped back to reality by the sharpness of the commanding general's voice over the communication system. In 5 minutes, we will begin dropping atom bombs on Mars. We hope that these bombs will cripple any Martian resistance that we might otherwise expect. The general signed off, and the soldiers rapidly reported to their assigned positions. Soon the communication system clicked on, and the general spoke again. The Martians have set up a force field. The bombs are exploding in midair before they reach the ground. Our men will have to land and fight. The rocket ships that brought the counterattack circled Mars, looking for a safe place to land. All the tanks and heavy artillery that would be needed to fight the Martians were aboard the spaceships. Several scouts were sent down ahead of the ships by using parachutes or rocket packs on their backs. Hoping to land secretly, the soldiers were startled to see several Martians wandering in the desert. Opening fire, the Earthmen blasted the Martians before they could spread an alert back to their doomed cities. The Earth fighters wanted a chance to mobilize fully before the space war continued on Mars soil. For this battle, the Earthmen wanted to make sure they were well prepared. The Earth soldiers stormed out of their spaceships, eager to repay the Martians for the damage done to their home planet. High in spirits, the men spoke hopefully of a swift victory over the enemy. Crossing a large sand dune, the troop of soldiers suddenly stopped and stared in wonder. Sprawled across the desert sands was a magnificent domed city. The sight was breathtaking. It was evident that the Martian builders were years ahead of Earth's architects. The Earthmen paused briefly, inspecting the spectacular city from the distance. The leader of the troop gave his orders, and the soldiers continued toward the dome, with revenge in their hearts. The Earthmen fought the Martians in hand-to-hand combat on the outskirts of the domed city. Puny in size, the Martians weren't any match in a test of physical strength with the powerful soldiers. The Earth fighters often lifted one of the aliens over their heads and hurled them through the air. Continually pouring forward and attacking the soldiers with knives and blunt instruments, the Martians hoped to destroy their oxygen tanks. The superior fighting force won out, as the Martians were pushed further and further back into the domed city. The Earthmen knew that somewhere within the city was the Martians' power source. Their aim was to destroy the power center. Across the sands of Mars rolled the powerful tanks from Earth. The tanks crashed their way into the domed city and rolled through the streets. Several Martians charged the steel vehicles with death guns aimed in their hands. Before the Martians could fire, a blast from the tank dropped them in their tracks. The tanks rolled forward, crushing anything in their path, and always heading toward the huge power source in the middle of the domed city. The Martian scientists saw the tanks coming, but there was little they could do to protect themselves. A parade of Earthmen streamed into the power center after the tanks, smashing the equipment. The soldiers marched through the city, looking around at the magnificent Martian buildings with respect. The closer they inspected the structures, the more wondrous the alien technology appeared. Suddenly, heavy metal footsteps echoed through the streets. Looking upward, the Earthmen saw a 50-foot metal man rapidly stalking toward them. Without hesitation, the soldiers quickly prepared to battle the machine. Powered by remote control, the Martian monster reached down and plucked one of the fighters in its steel claws. A barrage of grenades struck the robot, sending it spinning backwards. An army bazooka hit its mark, and the robot crumbled, disabled, to the ground. All across the planet of Mars, the domed cities lay in ruins. Martian victims were sprawled across the desert sands, many badly wounded and others beyond repair. The advanced civilization had been beaten into the dust under the force of Earth's violent counterattack. The Martian buildings and monorails, which had taken years to build, were all gone. Sinister vibrations and rumbles were continually registered from the interior of the planet. The dangerous atomic pressures were rapidly building up to the climactic point, and it was now only hours before the explosion that would destroy Mars. The Earth army piled into their spaceships and left the doomed planet. The once magnificent cities of Mars lay in burnt destruction. Earth's counterattack had completely shattered all civilization on the hostile planet. The triumphant Earthmen returned to their rocket ships and took off for home. With the Martians already badly battered, the worst was yet to come. Atomic pressures in the interior of Mars, having reached a dangerous level, suddenly erupted with terrific force. The shock waves from the immense explosion rocked the spaceships as they traveled back towards Earth. Before the pilots' very eyes, they watched Mars blow up into millions of tiny asteroids. The end. Afterward, despite the limited release of the set, nevertheless, those who saw it were deeply impacted by the things that they had seen. It was like, well, no other card set out there. I mean, yes, the Civil War set that Topps had put out the year before had been brutal, but that was a historical kind of brutal, and certainly didn't have the kind of things that we were talking about here. The set would be reprinted again in many different formats, including in card form. And 5 years ago, Topps actually released the first sequel set to it, Mars Attacks the Revenge, a 55-card base set with another 55 cards parallel. That is, it's the same card, but only in the sketch format. The idea of it is that 5 years after the end, the war starts again. The Martians have not been entirely wiped out, and they want revenge. And of course, the property has been made into a film, into comics, and in other items. And it really is amazing how, despite having to be pulled from shelves so rapidly, that despite that, the set has wound up leading to something so memorable. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to be cynical about it, it is just another pulp science fiction story. Anything particularly special. But what helps to really sell it is the fantastic artwork. Truly, it's something that really could have only been done in this kind of way. A comic might have been a bit too much, but a story would have just felt like just another same old sci-fi story. Being a set like this, maybe like a picture book perhaps, really allows you to have the best of both worlds.